What's the stupidest thing you've seen a grown-ass adult get angry over? Not being allowed to watch porn on the computers in the children's section of the public library. The children's computers had a content filter on them to prevent this sort of thing from happening. However, this dude brought a flash drive with his favorite videos on it, and when the computers in the non-children's section were all in use, he decided that the best course of action was to go over to where there were a number of young kids working on homework and playing Minecraft. When a librarian told him he couldn't do that on those computers and asked him to leave, he flipped out, accused the librarian of being a pedophile and a rapist, and threatened to both sue and stab everyone who worked at the library. The cops were called and they ended up having tase him to get him to leave. My grandma is a type 2 diabetic. When she was staying with my family after Hurricane Harvey destroyed her trailer, she got really pissed off that my stepdad was making healthy meals for her instead of her favorites like fries, pizza, hamburgers, pasta, etc. My stepdad being type 2 as well, he said he wasn't going to enable her horrible eating habits and let her slowly kill herself. Edit, she's 59 years old. So it's not like she's 80 and has lived a full life and should stuff her face before she dies. Her stuffing her face is what's gonna cause her to die early. Plus, we didn't force her to eat the healthy food. We told her she's welcome to eat what she wants if she buys it herself, but we're not going to be the ones responsible for her worsening health. Friend of mine got seriously hurt off a 50+ foot ski jump trying to avoid this 6-year-old girl hanging out in the blind landing. My friend is on the ground crying with his broken leg and ribs, and the father of this girl had the audacity to go stand over him and start screaming at him about how he could have killed his daughter. The 6-year-old hanging out in a blind spot where professional athletes were training. The mass of the park surrounded this guy quickly and told him they better never see him in a terrain park teaching his daughter how to ski on the landings of massive jumps, and proceeded to escort him and his daughter down the mountain. Fucking idiot almost got his daughter killed, permanently injured my friend, and then decided to come scream at an injured person who just hurt themselves to save his daughter's life. And before any other skiers call me or my buddy or anyone else, they're out. This was a very secluded and secured area. Somehow this dad and small daughter ducked a ton of fences to go hang out in the landing of a very large jump. There were spotters. Somehow this lovely duo came out of nowhere to go have fun in the landing, and no one really thought to be looking for random little kids breaking into the park. I'm a flight attendant, so I see adults get angry over stupid things pretty much every time I go to work. It's usually when they are asleep and get angry because we skipped them during the beverage service. Also had a guy get furious and scream at me because we didn't have meals to serve in main cabin on a 2-hour flight. I calmly explained to him that we don't have meals on that length of a flight. He just kept going on and on about how ridiculous it was, as if I should simply produce a meal for him out of nowhere while we were in the air. Edit, yawn. It's not that serious. Airlines are huge and there's a lot of messiness that goes on behind the scenes. Sometime we get to the plane and catering doesn't give us everything we need. We're in a small confined space with limited resources and we work with what we have. Most of us are trying our best. If the flight attendant skips you, you always have the option of asking for what you want without getting reckless. You're more likely to get the treatment you want in life if you act kind towards others. If we did something that made you unhappy, we probably didn't mean it. You'll be a lot happier in life if you don't take things personally and learn to go with the flow. Also, always bring an empty water bottle and snack with you when you travel. Worked customer service at a grocery store. Woman brings in fucking boxes of canned goods and cereal boxes. No receipt. She says she bought them for a donation but forgot. Just for giggles I scan the item to return and it's not in our system. I take a look at the cans, expiration date 2005, it was 2008. Look at the cereal boxes, expiration date 2007. I explain that we can't return her goods because they were purchased a long time ago, and even if I wanted to, they don't scan into the system. She throws a fit. straight screaming about terrible customer service, getting the attention of everyone in the store. My manager comes over and she screams he won't return my goods. My manager says to just do it. I tell him to look at the expiration date, and he says to the lady, I'm sorry, but you can't just clean out your pantry and expect to return expired goods. She yelled some more before storming off and leaving all the stuff sitting on the counter. To this day I don't understand how a 40-something adult thought they would get away with that. I worked at a bookstore in high school, and every winter we have a book drive and ask customers if they'd like to donate a children's book when they are checking out. Usually people say no, sorry, but one guy would not stop going on and on about how if he wanted to buy a book, he'd just keep it, not donate it. So I replied, okay, you don't have to donate, and proceeded to move on in the process and tell him his total, and he just kept circling back to how ridiculous it was that I asked him to donate a $4 book to kids in schools who couldn't afford them, up until the moment he left. He's the only person I ever thought was an asshole for not donating. Edit, just so you'll know, he wouldn't be donating money, he'd be buying a book which I put in a bin and is sent to schools and shelters. A guy with his kids inside a McDonald's which was inside a Walmart. He brought his order back to the counter and asked the pregnant cashier, who doesn't get paid enough to deal with this shit, what he ordered. His attitude started out calm enough, but anybody who has worked food service long enough could tell he was going to be one of those customers that just blows up in a rage after they've made their point. He explained that he had ordered a different sandwich, and she replied that, no, he ordered what they had given him. He was shouting and swearing. A manager got involved and told him they would just give him the money back. So he took his money back, aggressively of course, and said to his kids in a loud and self-righteous tone, come on, kids. Let's go to a real McDonald's. Bro needed to get over himself. I answer 911 calls. One day we had a fatal car crash happen, and had to reroute traffic from the main road down a side road, then back up to the main road. A woman who lives on the side road called 911 asking why there was commercial traffic passing through her residentially zoned home. I explained there was a serious car accident on the main route, and that as soon as that was resolved, the detour would be removed. She continued to complain, very angrily, that the trucks going by her house were kicking up dust and pebbles into her driveway, and demanded we send someone to clean it for her. I said no, we don't do that. She demanded to speak to a supervisor. I got all her information, then I told her he'd be along to speak to her in person after he was finished informing the family of the person who died in the car accident that their family member was dead. Then I hung up the phone. When the sergeant got there, she refused to come to the door and refused to answer the phone when we called her back. Edit, thanks for the gold and the kudos and well wishes, did not expect this to blow up the way it did. I used to work in a deli, and one time this lady came up asking for cheese sliced thin stacked on top of each other. I thought to myself, how else would I stack it? But sliced the cheese and went to hand it to her. She lost her ever-loving mind because I didn't stack it right and made me re-slice the cheese thinner and way over-stagger the slices. All while berating me and telling me how awful I was at my job and how she knew the owner and was going to tell him how awful I was and how bad my attitude was. Luckily my manager stood up for me when the owner came to talk to him. The dumb old bitch made me cry first thing in the morning. Another time I had a guy freak out over the price of bologna. One type was on sale and one type wasn't, and he wanted the type that wasn't for the price of the one that was, and when I told him I couldn't do that and got my supervisor to back me up, he screamed at both of us and called us stupid, uneducated women. So glad I don't work retail anymore. I was a teen and it was my first day working retail at a store where the only customers are middle-aged, middle-upper class white women, and this one lady was buying a huge amount of clothes, I think like 25 items in all. There was a huge line, so I was folding the clothes very quickly, when the woman puts her hand over mine to stop me and goes, "That's how you fold. If you were my daughter I would be screaming at you." Note, not her daughter, and yet there she was, screaming at me. I apologized and nervously laughed. She mocked my laugh and then proceeded to empty the bag I had filled, and very dramatically showed me the proper way to fold. She glared at me and looked around like, "Can you believe this shit?" As I held up the line and folded the clothes the way she wanted. She left with no words, just huffed off. From that day forth my anxiety kicked into hyperdrive every time I had a shift, thinking something like that was going to happen again. When I was a kid, maybe 12 years old, I was at a gas station with my mother. At the pump behind ours was this rather nice looking oldish car. Needless to say, the old man who owned it was understandably very protective over it. When he came out of the convenience store, he started yelling at me about touching his car. With my mother as my witness, I never came within 10 feet of the vehicle, let alone touch it. I didn't even sneeze in the general direction of it. We were both too confused to even react. I still wonder what that guy saw, because our gas pump was in front of his car, and not even next to it, ruling out any possibility that he saw me standing behind it. TL, doctor, an old guy went off on me about touching his car when I didn't come even remotely close to it. What he saw remains a mystery to this day. Edit, grammar.